in giving out, permits for construction in the floodplain, lots and lots of impervious area. But this is my first opportunity to give out money. And that's always exciting, isn't it? To actually give out money, especially $10 million. And it's not coming out of my wallet, so that makes it even better. The only other close experience I had with giving out money is to my son who's in college. He's finished 7 years and 1 more year to go. So hopefully that experience will end soon. So let me share my screen with you. And we'll get started on the presentation. Okay, can you see my screen? Everything good? Okay, so we're here today to talk about stormwater management grants for water quality and quantity improvement. We call it RFP. RFP stands for Request for Proposals for Projects and Planning Activities. So this is who we are. We're part of the Department of Environmental Protection. Vince Mazai is our Assistant Commissioner. Anika Andrews is our Director. I already introduced myself. I actually like to think that I'm the Maharani of everything floodplain and stormwater. And we have Gabe Mann, who's Bureau Chief with the Nijiptis and the Water Quality Management Program. And again, we are excited to make this opportunity available. A few housekeeping rules. Thank you very much for attending the webinar today. This meeting is being recorded, and by you being here, you agreed to be recorded. We are posting all of the presentations as well as this recorded meeting on our Stormwater Grants website. And that is your most important resource. We will post it in the chat. I mean, it's actually posted already in the chat. And that's how you get all information, including any changes or updates that needs to happen. It will all be posted there. Please mute yourself because we do have a large number of people attending this meeting. We will take the questions and answers after all the presentations are done. So you can post your questions at the end in the chat section. If you come up with, if you need additional clarification after this webinar, you can also send those questions to our email address. Very easy to remember, stormwatergrantsinfo@dep.nj.gov. Okay, let's go through the agenda. I'd like to say a few words about the purpose of this grant, followed by funding, where is the money coming from, eligibility, who can apply for these grants, the various category of grants and the dollar amounts allocated to these various categories, things that are not covered by this grant, project requirements, timelines, what your responsibilities are, what's our evaluation criteria. And at that point, I will be handing over the screen to our stormwater engineer, Minish Patel. He'll be going over more about GI projects, basin retrofits, as well as the application process, which applications have to be submitted through the SAGE portal. And he'll show you how to get to that. And then we'll end with the question and answers. Okay, purpose. The main purpose of this stormwater management grant is to provide for improvement to water quality and quantity. I think we all know by now that flooding is one of the major natural disasters that strikes New Jersey from time to time. We've had many 100-year storms, over and over again. We've dealt with Tropical Storm Ida, Superstorm Sandy, Floyd, Ivan, Irene. In fact, we've experienced 9 major storms that has dumped more than 10 inches of rainfall. Does anybody know what the highest one storm total rainfall was that fell on New Jersey? If you have it, I'd like to see you post it in the chat, but I'm looking for 1 month total, if anybody has that. Okay, so moving along, the answer. The highest one storm total was 24 inches, and that fell in 1940 in Gloucester County, right here in New Jersey. But definitely the most deadliest storm is Tropical Storm Ida. We had over 30 people with fatalities directly related to the storm, which is terrible. Now, one of the major reasons we're having so many storms is because of, climate changes, which leads to higher rainfall amount, precipitation. Just in the last 20 years, rainfall amounts increased by 10%. And it's expected that it'll increase by 50% in this century alone. And this was based on a study that was done by Cornell University, specifically for New Jersey, funded by DEP. So that's a lot of more rainfall that's expected to come. And going back to Ida, what was a little bit unique about Tropical Storm Ida was that a lot of the damages occurred in areas that were not even mapped to be floodplain and were not where people didn't have flood insurance because the stormwater infrastructure was inadequate to meet the demand required by the increased rainfall, and water started backing up and flooding out areas that were not even in the floodplain. So to wrap it up, the main purpose of this grant is to provide for water quality related improvements in terms of water quality and quantity. So where are we getting this money to give away? $5 million of this money comes from the coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds, because flooding is directly related to impacts on health and wellness and safety of our residents. $2 million comes from the state corporate business tax fund. Another $3 million also comes from the same CBT fund, but that's being used for a technical assistance grant. That's the one I went over last Wednesday. And so the total release with this phase 1 grant is $10 million. And who's eligible to apply for this grant? Local government, municipalities, counties, colleges and universities, public utilities, even private entities, and nonprofit organizations, and some other entities that are established by either law or ordinance. So the list is pretty big of the people that are eligible for this portion of the grant. So we're really looking for demonstration projects that have direct improvement to water quality and quantity. And we do have a planning component within this grant. And I'll go over all of that in a little bit. But we're looking for projects that line up with the department priorities, which is to help improve conditions for the overburdened or the underserved communities, as well as our priorities regarding climate resilience and flood attenuation. So these are the department priorities. let's go through the more details on how the money breaks down. So as I said, it's $10 million is the total amount, but $7 million will go to projects and planning. Out of this, we're anticipating to give out $4.5 million for green infrastructure projects, another $1 million for detention basin retrofits to make them better, function better, and so on. Another $1 million for removal of impervious areas and restoring those areas. And we have $500,000 set aside for planning opportunities that identify stormwater related improvement that could happen within an area. So if a project has in-kind services, monetary contributions in terms of, in-kind services, that will increase the proposal ranking for the award selection, but it's not a requirement. But if you happen to have, if you can bundle up the money that we're giving with other sources of funding, it will increase your ranking. So like I said, the first part of bucket will go to green infrastructure. The second pot of money will go to the detention basin retrofits. Minish Patel, our stormwater engineer, will go through more details on these two funding categories. I would like to focus on these two. The first one is restoration and removal of impervious area. Well, I'm sorry, I wanted to say something else before I got there. So this money that we've set aside, the four buckets of money, if we feel it's necessary, we might transfer the money from one opportunity to another. Like, I don't know, we get a lot of really good basin retrofit projects, then we might increase that money and reduce it from another one, which might not have as many. So that's at our sole discretion. But for the most part, we're going to stick to the funding according to the way we posted here. Now, when you make your application, you're really going to have to pick one of these. Okay, if you have a project that removes impervious area and then you want to put in a green infrastructure detention basin within that area, you're going to have to decide which category you're going to select. And any project that spans one or two of these areas will clearly be in a better shape than one that only covers one area. But for application purpose, you really have to pick which one of these titles or categories your project fits into. So let me go back to where I was. So the one I wanted to discuss more was the third one, which is restoration and removal of impervious area. For this one, we're looking for projects where maybe there's some orphan impervious areas or underutilized parking lots, but we'll be looking for basically digging up, removing all of the impervious areas, amending the soil and making it more porous. And once that's done, if you would plant that area so that it becomes a forested area sometime in the future, that would be great. If that area serves as a wildlife corridor or serves to function as E&T habitat, that would all be plus points. If it happens to be in a floodplain and you're going to dig it up and create flood storage as well as a natural area, that's another plus. If it happened to be in proximity to a stream or a water course, and you're going to restore it to riparian zones, that would be wonderful. Again, plus points. And definitely if you can turn that into some sort of freshwater wetlands that can, function to attenuate flooding and do water quality improvements, those are all, plus points for your project. And that's the one that we've set aside $1 million. That can fund quite a lot of projects. The last category is planning for stormwater opportunities. So what we were envisioning with this would be basically a survey within a municipality or a county or a portion of the municipality. So identifying all of the areas where impervious area could be reduced, identifying areas that currently do not receive water quality treatment, where they're identifying areas where basins could be put in to treat untreated areas, as well as identifying basins that were built a long time ago before our standards improved and increased. So it's a planning function where you'd have to create a map and submit opportunities for stormwater. Last Wednesday, when I presented the document for creation of a stormwater utility study, that opportunity, there was a lot of interest in that. We had a lot of people that wanted to get in on this. So I just want to point out that this planning for stormwater opportunity could include planning related to creation of a stormwater utility. There's $500,000 set aside in this planning function. The one I presented last week was $2 million. That one was clearly the bigger part. But in this case, if somebody already has a consultant and they have already completed some portions of the planning for stormwater utility, and they just need a little bit extra fund to bring it over the finish line, this would be a good place to submit those proposals. But pick one or the other, whatever situation fits your project. So projects that we do not fund are projects that do not control pollutants and that do not use best management practices. We're clearly not looking to fund private projects that actually increase impervious areas and then want to put in a green infrastructure to control the impervious area that they put in. That's not the type of projects we're looking for. We're looking to control runoff from existing impervious areas. This grant will not cover maintenance activities such as street sweeping, catch basin cleaning, or any other requirement that's part of the state or federal regulations. We will not be funding any project that would have negative impacts to the environment or the watershed. What that means is that we probably won't give a permit. We probably won't give a grant to rip up a wooded forest in order to put in green infrastructure. And we will not be funding promotional items such as keychains, t-shirts with logos, and so on. And when you do apply, you have to make sure that the project is either located on a public property, or if it's on a private property, you have to have the property owner's permission agreement executed. And the project must be consistent with local, state, and federal requirements. And if needed, permits can be obtained. We have staff that'll be on this selection committee that are familiar with state permitting requirements. And so we will be screening for those. It has to be a well-designed project with a goal of reducing pollution. And we need to see the proper sequence of events related to the project construction. And if your proposal is for planning activities, you should, in your proposal, let us know what your deliverables are, like schedules, reports, maps, inventories, and so on. And most importantly, you have to be able to complete this project within the grant period. And I'll go over the deadlines soon. And you must show if your project proposes to improve water quality, we might ask you to collect and provide data to demonstrate how water quality improvements have been done. So this is the deadline page that I was talking about, or the timeline page. You have to submit this proposal by September 14, 2022 through our SAGE application portal. In fact, the portal will basically shut down at midnight. So, and if you're like halfway through submitting, that could be a problem. So please pay attention to the September 14th deadline, and no applications can be submitted after this deadline. It will take us some time to sort through all the stuff and make recommendations, and we hope to notify by December 13th of this year. You have 30 days to complete the grant agreement documents. We have to spend the money by December of 2024, but we're well ahead of the game. We're going to have these obligated this year, I'm sure. And on your part, you must have the project completed by December 2026. So I think that's a lot of time, but at the same time, I would not want to see projects get stuck with that, with that deadline. Now, coming back to the deadline of September 14, 2022, that deadline is directly related to projects such as green infrastructure, basin retrofits, restoration of impervious, and planning for stormwater opportunities. That is not to be confused with the technical assistance grant, which now have an extended due date of September 23rd, 2022. Any of you that attended the information session last Wednesday, I did give you fair warning that the deadline was to be extended, and we listened to you. So many of you wanted that extended, and only the technical assistance grants have been extended to September 23rd. Everything else will be where it is. September 14th, don't forget that. You have to give us quarterly progress and financial reports, water quality data if needed. You must complete this project on time. And at the end, you have to give us a final report summarizing the project and highlighting all the results. That's your responsibility. Ownership and property rights are very important. We need to see maps and stuff created using New Jersey DEP GIS standards. Maintenance agreements are needed in order to make sure that whatever is constructed hangs around and gets maintained the way it needs to. You have to be consistent with federal treasury requirements, and final reports should be in accordance with Appendix E of the RFP, which is posted on our Stormwater website. So how are we going to evaluate this project? As I said, we will be putting together a team of staff with all kinds of experience, people that have experience in environmental fields, people that have experience in engineering field. They'll all be pretty much our staff, DEP staff, but it will be cross-program. People with stormwater management experience, people with floodplain experience, people that have permitting experience. And we will select based on what the project is, what is the applicability of this project to our goals. And that would get 25 points. We really want projects that can be built. So project readiness is important to us. That's another 25 points. what is the likelihood of success? That would be another 30 points. And cost sharing or matching funds would get the project 10 points. And monitoring and evaluation would get it another 10 points. So we would use those evaluation criteria. We'll use our staff. We will rank based on each priority category. We will submit these recommendations to our director. Our director will select the awardees and the funding amount. This gets approved by our finance department, and it goes to the commissioner of the DEP for the final approval. So this page is a very important page. I tried to include every single link and that you would need. I made sure I highlighted September 14th as your deadline. I highlighted the grants website. If you have any questions, you can submit it to our Stormwater Grants info email address. All of these links will be posted or have been posted in the chat. I can't see the chat right now, sorry. And I also put in the information related to last Wednesday's presentation. I just want everything to be in one place so you can access it. So that brings us to the end of my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing the screen and hand the screen over to Minesh Patel, who will be going over the GI and the basin retrofits.
All right, thanks, Madhu. Let's get this started here. All right, so good morning, everyone. My name is Minesh Patel. I'm an environmental engineer in the Bureau of Flood Hazard and Stormwater Engineering, and I'll be giving you a brief presentation on the other two categories that you heard of, which are green infrastructure and basin retrofitting projects. So here's a quick little agenda for this presentation. We'll be going over the eligibility requirements for this grant, as well as a quick intro to the two types of categories and review some types of examples that you could see that once they're built. So funding made available under this RFP shall be used for stormwater management activities that would directly enhance, improve, or protect the use of any waters of the state that are located in overabundant communities. Eligible activities, they can include implementation of green infrastructure projects that are designed in accordance with the New Jersey Stormwater BMP manual, which you can find at the link provided on the slide. Projects which restore or improve water quality attributes of existing stormwater management facilities, combined sewer overflow abatement projects, projects designed to create, restore, and enhance areas currently devoid of vegetation through the removal or reduction of existing impervious surfaces, and stormwater management activities that improve water quality, effectively manage water quantity, and control nutrients. A quick note though, the grant funds, they can be used to cover associated application fees for state or local applications or permits that are needed to conduct the activities that are identified in your proposals that are consistent with these categories here. So now let's take a look at one of these. We'll start with green infrastructure. So this is the definition of green infrastructure as noted under section 1.2 of the stormwater management rules. Part of this definition specifies that green infrastructure manages stormwater close to its source, which plays an important part in the management rule. Along with the stormwater management measure being located close to the source of runoff it's designed to receive, green infrastructure must treat the stormwater runoff through infiltration into the subsoil, filtration by vegetation or soil, or store it for reuse. So in all, green infrastructure BMPs effectively mimic the natural hydrology and provide environmental benefits through infiltrating precipitation, evapotranspiration, and evaporating precipitation to reuse stormwater discharge volume, and intercepting precipitation to reduce runoff and erosion. So here's some examples of GI BMPs, which you can find in Chapter 9 of our BMP manual, which is on the link provided on the slide. As you see, these are all small-scale bioretention systems. They're all uniquely built. One is built near an intersection of two streets. The two in the middle, they're right off of sidewalks, and the one on the right, it's in a parking lot. They all do the same thing, though, in reducing pollutants. They'll reduce stormwater runoff, and they're going to provide groundwater recharge, which, when it's designed to infiltrate into the subsoil, will do. These details and more, you can find them further in each individual subchapter of Chapter 9. A few more examples. The two on the left, they're pervious paving systems. The first picture, you can see conventional asphalt and how water has essentially covered it, while the proposed asphalt right next to it, it's doing what it's intended to do, which is allowing stormwater runoff to move right through it into the ground. On the right side of the slide, you see cisterns and green roofs. They're also included in Chapter 9 of our BMP manual. As is here, though, they only reduce stormwater runoff. There are some BMPs in this chapter that have different performance standards, so you need to read each subchapter carefully to determine what is best for your situation. So next, we'll take a look at basin retrofitting. Chapter 8 of the BMP manual is our maintenance and retrofitting of stormwater management measures chapter. Retrofitting can be defined as expanding, modifying, or otherwise upgrading existing stormwater management measures. As such, retrofitting or stormwater management measures can address water quality. They can reduce nutrient loading, reduce stormwater velocities and or volume caused by existing land developments. In many instances, existing stormwater management measures can be dramatically improved and downstream water bodies protected through effective retrofitting. They can help a community address a particular stormwater quantity or quality problem that's developed as a result of deficiencies in its existing or past stormwater regulations. In addition to such basic considerations as need and cost, 3 important factors must be considered when you're evaluating these possibilities, and that is health and safety, effectiveness, and maintenance. All 3 should be thoroughly reviewed before you undertake a stormwater management measure retrofit to help justify the cost and effort to ensure that the retrofitted measure's long-term success is going to be sustained. So here's an example of a basin retrofit. The detention basin on the left, it's not considered as a GI BMP. On the right, though, you see an example of a possible design detail of a small-scale bioretention basin that this detention basin can be retrofitted into. As you know, small-scale bioretentions, they can provide water quality, they can reduce peak flow, and they can provide groundwater recharge, which a detention basin as it is cannot do. Here's another scenario. You see a non-draining basin that is, well, it's essentially failing. So an example here would be to retrofit it into an underdrained bioretention basin. Bioretention systems, they can be made to underdrain or infiltrate. So here, keep in mind, we're talking about the underdrain design. That's because this would help resolve the ponding issue with the use of an underdrain pipe. So that's another example of a retrofit. And one more example is this swale. You can retrofit it into a small-scale bioretention swale that is underdrained with similar plans such as the one created on the right-hand side of the slide. It's going to help resolve the issues that this BMP is facing, which from the picture, it looks like it's having ponding issues. So a retrofit would definitely help in this situation. So those were just a couple of ideas of what basin retrofitting could look like in some situations, but there are always more ideas you can use for your situations. So now let's take a look at how you can start your applications for these categories that you've heard of today in our SAGE system. So here's what we'll discuss about SAGE. They include a brief look at our website, how to register an organization, how to add members, applying and submitting applications, and some management tools in the system that you may find useful when you're applying. So this is a screenshot of the grants website. I'm sure you're familiar with it. You can also find it with the hyperlink below. If you scroll further down the site, you'll find the application procedures section, and there you'll see a link to get to the NJDEP SAGE login page where you can start your application. So what exactly is SAGE? Well, SAGE is the system for administering grants electronically. Other state departments, they use similar systems, such as NJDCA SAGE. There's Blue SAGE, but the DEP system, it's independent of these and it's not connected to those systems at all. So if your organization hasn't registered through the NJDEP SAGE system, you can click on New User on the homepage and it'll take you to the registration page. Just noting here, only eligible applicants can register as a user. Consultants, they should be added as a member of the organization after they've already been approved. So here's the registration form. Once you fill it out with all your relevant information, you can click Save at the top right and it will submit. It should take no more than 72 hours for an email to be sent to you, and I'll let you know if you've been accepted into the system. So back here, we're at the welcome page. You'll also notice a section for vendor ID at the bottom. If you do not have a vendor ID, you'll need to register through NJ Start by just clicking the link in the paragraph below. So once you get your login information, you can log in and this will be your homepage. Here you'll find items such as my training materials, my organizations, my profile. In the training tab, you'll be given access to a guidance manual that will give you pretty much an overview of the system. Consider it to be a feature you can use when you need help when going through the system. So if you want to update your organization information or add any members to your organization, you can click on My Organization and you'll be taken here. You can add your vendor ID. You can add your DUNS number, which is going to be required for your grant application. You can enter and update any information that's needed. Just remember to click the Save button once you're done. And if you need to view any members of your organization, you click on Organization Members. And if you do click that, you'll be taken to a list of the members that appear in your organization with their role and how many active documents they have been assigned to them. If a member is no longer with the organization, you can put an end date under active dates to disable their login. To add new members, you can click on Add Members right above the Current Members box. On the right side of the slide is the page you'll then be taken to. And here you can add new members. You will click on the New Member button. And once you do that, you'll be directed to the Add/Edit Member page. Here, you'll fill out the new member's information, including a default username and a default password, which you'll then have to send to that member. Sage is not going to notify them itself, so whatever you choose it to be, make sure you keep track of it and send it to them right away. You'll also assign them a role of either authorized official, which will give them initiate, edit, and submittal rights, or you can assign them as just a viewer, which will allow them to only view the documents. Once you're done with that, you can go ahead and click Save and Add to Organization. So some things to remember real quick. At a minimum, you need to have the contact person or executioner of the grants, the financial officer, and the project manager added as members of your organization. This will be needed for the application. If there's a consultant that's helping you with the application, you can add them as well. Another thing to remember, like I just said, you need to email each person their default username and password. The system is not going to notify them. And once that new person does log in, they can always change that information under the My Profile section. So now let's take a look at how to apply. To do this, you'll go to your homepage and you'll see the View Available Opportunities section. Here, you'll go ahead and click on the View Opportunities button. And once you do that, you'll be taken to a page that will look like this. You'll then search for the grant that you want to apply. So here, you see in the My Opportunities drop-down list, we can choose Stormwater Management 2022. And once you select that, you can click on Filter, and then the opportunity will show up. This is just a sample, but once you log in yourself, you'll see more of the full details. You'll then go to the end and click on the Apply Now button to move forward with your application. And once you click that, it'll take you to the application document. And as you see on the screenshot on the left, you can go to Application Forms, and you can hover or click on the Forms menu and fill each of them out by clicking on the individual form. You'll need to fill each of them out for this application, and you'll need all the required information for it. So I'll walk you through what each of these forms will look like when you do your application. Here's the first form, the application information form. It's fairly straightforward here. You're going to just fill it out. Once you choose those members, their contact information should automatically populate. The partner information, those would be for consultants, subcontractors, and partners. Just a reminder, when you do complete any of these forms, you want to click the Save button at the top before you move on. The Save button, it's more recommended than clicking the Save/Next button, which is right next to it, because that way you can at least check to see if the information you provided on your form is all correct and accurate, and that there are no errors, and that the system saved everything you wanted before you move on. Save/Next will not let you check that, and it'll take you straight to the next form. So once you click Save and you check your information, you can go ahead, you can click Next. That's right next to Save/Next, and you can move on to the next form. So the next form is project details. A note here is that when you go to the RFP category drop-down list, you'll have 4 to choose from, and there are the 4 categories that we discussed today. You'll only be allowed to click one and choose only one RFP. If you have multiple projects, you can submit another one, or if a project overlaps with another RFP, you'll need to make the decision on your own on which is the most applicable for your project. So once you choose that, you'll fill out the total grant amount that you're requesting. The match will be either in kind or cash. In kind would mean more volunteer time only. If there's salaries, supplies, donations, those would all go under cash. Other funding could be remediation actions or anything like that. That would go there. Once you're done with this page, go ahead and click Save, and you can move on to the next form. This is the project location form. A note, if you're having trouble choosing your counties and municipalities and having them show up in the boxes to the right, make sure once you select them, click Save, and they should show up in those boxes to the right. If you're choosing multiple counties and municipalities, just hold down the Control key and click as many as you need. And if you need to add multiple block and lots and coordinates, you can click the plus sign and you can add as many as you need. The next form is the predicted co-benefits form. There's a series of questions you'll answer on this form that will identify the co-benefits the project will achieve. Next is the project proposal form. Here you will provide the description of the project and any kind of background information that's applicable, where your goals are, your objectives, those will all be here. How you are as an applicant, your experience with grants, that should all be provided right here. Next is the implementation schedule and budget form. Your objective, your tasks, project deliverables, the responsible party, timelines. You'll need a start and end month. It's just a numerical field, so you're not spelling it out completely. So, for example, if your task will start in January and end, say, in October, you'll put start as 1 and end as 10. And then you'll put your grant and match money that's associated with each task as well. Make sure you fill it out as accurately as possible. You can always add more tasks by clicking the plus sign as well. And if you have extra objectives, you can click on the box at the bottom and you can always add more. So the budget details form will need a description of how you came up with your budget numbers and a justification for the cost. So for salaries, you would need an employee name, their hours devoted to the project, their salary, their rate, just an idea really of how you came up with your numbers should go right here. And the last form is the supplemental information form. Here you can add other relevant information to your application. Letters of support, match commitments, site plans, landscaping plans, maintenance documents, permits, enforcement documents, and any relevant site photos. If you have more than one attachment for each, again, you can click the plus sign and add as many as you need. So when you finish filling out all your forms, you can hover over the forms menu again. And if there are any errors, the form will let you know by giving you these 3 hand signs. They indicate that you need to go back and fix those errors. The form will tell you at the top what those errors are, so it should be fairly straightforward what you need to fix. If everything is filled out correctly, you'll see these icons on the right, and they're essentially a pencil and a piece of paper, and they'll indicate to you that your forms are ready to go. So if everything's ready to go, you can move on here and you click status changes and click on the apply status button under application submitted, and you will submit your application. If you decide not to proceed with the grant application, you can click on apply status under the cancel application section. So let's say you want to return to an application that you haven't submitted yet. Back here, you're on the home page. You can see under My Task section, you can click on the Open My Task button. And once you click that, you'll then search for the document that is in process from the list. Once you find it, you'll then click on the document name, and it'll take you back to where you can find the Forms menu. And another way to retrieve your application is through the My Applications tab. Here, you can search for your application through the types and names. So you'll just go ahead and search and click on the name again, and it'll take you back to the Forms menu. And lastly, let's take a look at some of the management tools that Sage provides. You'll find this section right next to the Forms menu and Status Changes sections. If you hover over Management Tools, you'll see a list of tools that may be useful. You can create a full print version of your grant application. It will download as a PDF. You can also create a full blank print version, which will download a blank application. And if you scroll down a little further, you'll see on the right that there's the Add Edit People section. So let's say you click that, you'll be taken here, and it's going to list all the members of your organization. If you find no check mark next to a person's name, this means that the person is not associated with this document. They'll not be able to receive the document or receive any relevant notifications. So double check that you have the appropriate people assigned to the documents by checking their name and click the Save button. If someone left your organization, you can do one of 2 things. You can simply uncheck their name, or like I said earlier, you can leave it checked, but mark under the active dates and end date for that person, and then you can click Save. So just some final thoughts here. If you add a member to your organization after you initiated the grant application, those members, they're not going to be automatically associated with the document. So you'll have to go to Management Tools and add them to the document yourself. The My Task section, it's only going to appear on the home page when there's an action that the applicant or grantee needs to perform. Make sure you save each page of the application and that it has no errors. When you're done with your application, you can go ahead to status changes and click the apply status button. And typically we found that the best browser to use for Sage is Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge. So if you're finding any problems using another browser, try using Chrome or Edge, and hopefully that will resolve those issues. So like I said, there are training materials available within Sage itself, but if you do have any questions on the system, don't hesitate to contact us through our email here. And I'm going to hand it back to Madhu. I believe that is all I got for Sage.
Thank you, Manish. That was a very good presentation. A lot of information here. For those of you who have not used Sage before, please, we're going to post everything on our grants website. Please refer to that. And let me share my screen. I'm going to get to the questions now. If you have anything, you can post them here. So let's get right to it. The first question has to do with applicability of Blue Acre properties. Yes, you can use Blue Acre properties. It is a public. I think it would be good. You can put rain gardens, but community gardens, I am not so sure. That I don't think would fit with our goals and intent. But using Blue Acre property is fine. All right, now let me scroll down. Oh, okay. Oh, this is a good guess from Roy Masario, 23-inch. I said the inches of rainfall, the highest inches of rainfall for New Jersey was 24-inch. That's a good one. Will there be a phase 2 of this grant or multiple rounds of this grant program? Yes, we're anticipating, definitely we're anticipating phase 2 of stormwater management grants. They won't all be the same categories presented so far. It'll be something very different and new. Even eligibility will be different people. In the future, yeah, maybe we'll have even more rounds. But phase 2 is in the works right now. It will definitely be released. I think we're trying to release it either next month or the month after that. Will a funding require deed restrictions? Okay, deed restrictions would be required if it's on a private property. But if it's on a public property that's already protected from development, you would not necessarily need that. We'd have to see what type of project it is. I mean, what kind of property it is. But it's not always required, but if it's a private property, yes, we would require it. This question is, so it must include water quality? It can't be solely for quantity control? No, I think we have multiple goals here. Flood control is clearly one of our big goals. So if you have a project that controls quantity, we would love to see that. Can we get a copy of this PowerPoint? Absolutely. We're going to post it on our website. Okay, a bunch of questions here. Overburdened communities, that would be the New Jersey definition of overburdened community. And in the actual RFP document, we give you the citation where you can double check and make sure you got that covered. Proposal submissions are by category, or submission may cover multiple categories. The application form asks you to select one category, and that's where you're going to submit. Your project could have benefits for multiple categories, but you have to select which category you're going to submit your project under. And do not submit the same project under multiple categories. You're just going to clog up our system. Based on a category, our stormwater projects that include only gray infrastructure not eligible. I think it could be eligible. Definitely could be eligible. That's one of the green infrastructure practice. So we will definitely look at that. All right. Would dredging a stormwater pond be eligible? No, that would be more of a maintenance activity, and none of these grants would cover that. Okay, to confirm, stormwater feasibility, technical assistance, letter application. Yes, this is absolutely correct. The technical assistance letter would be just an email, but the stormwater management grant applications for the 4 category presented today must be through the SAGE portal. And as you heard from Manish, if you'd ever used it before, it could get a little tricky. I would strongly suggest make your application well in advance of the midnight deadline. Minesh, you're planning to stay up till midnight, right? We'll see. Which of the 4 categories would be CSO abatement if not applying GI in scope? That's a good question. So the whole project would be just CSO abatement, not necessarily any of the detentions. I mean, CSO abatement as part of the project would get, higher consideration. I'm going to have to think about this a little bit. What I'm going to ask you to do is take the same question and send it to us through the email. And I will answer you back after I think about this a little bit. But we kind of envisioned, projects within and CSO communities would get higher rating. But I'd like to see how you plan to do the CSO abatement. Can you please review required supplemental? I would ask you to go to the RFP. There's a whole section on the required submittal documents. I'd rather you go with that, or you can wait for the Minish's presentation, which is going to be posted. Just that it's going to be like a bit time consuming, and I really want to get to all the rest of the questions. Does cost need to be in a federal form, example, salary and approved direct and fees, or can they be on currently approved rates? Definitely the first category. It could be in the form of salary and all the other costs associated with it. The hourly rates would not apply to this particular RFP grant. Where this comes in is totally out of your process, because we internally, when we hire our own professional consultant, we will have approved hourly rates. But for your application, just stick with this first, which is salary and all of the indirect and application fees. It looked like all of the supplemental information fields were required fields. Manish, I'm going to say yes to that. What do you think? Or Jennifer, do you know if they were all required fields? I'm going to, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say maybe Jen knows better about that.
So from what I remember when we built the system, we made the supplemental information required fields on some, and then we made them optional on the others. So there was a star put next to the ones that were required fields, and it tells you right there that it's a required field. Is there a summarized list or PDF of all the documents that are needed? A blank form. You're looking for a blank form. I mean, you can get that as soon as you log in through Sage, but you're looking for a blank one ahead of time, I guess. That wouldn't be too hard to generate, right, Manish? You could generate one. You could generate one, and then you could post it on the grants webpage.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, well, that's your assignment. Go to it. Is DEP limiting the number of grants within a municipality or a county? Not necessarily. If we get a couple of really good projects in the same municipality, I mean, we want projects that succeed. We're not necessarily limiting it to one per county or anything like that. Can a municipality apply for more than one grant? Absolutely. The criteria of project that address environmental justice. Please explain the point system. It's one of the parts that goes into the project evaluation that had the 25 points. So it's part of that. Are basins that have a class 4 dam features applicable? Applicable for what? I mean, maintenance, no. You can't go in and maintain a dam and get grants for that. But is this a class 4 dam that also functions as a stormwater detention basin? Would you want to improve the functioning of it and make it, better made water quality and quantity? Then you can clearly apply for the basin retrofit portion of the grant. The project has to be completed by 2026, but maintenance can be ongoing, right? No money will be dispersed after 2026. Therefore, we would want eligible people to be designated for the maintenance of what is already built. So the 2026 is a deadline for end of the funding. How is project readiness evaluated? If the design still needs to be completed. Well, well, sometimes we get a lot of very good projects, but they're kind of a bit more vague. We will take a look at that. I'm not sure I can put it into words, really. What is a DUNS number? No idea. Does that sound familiar, Minesh?
Yeah, a DUNS number, you're gonna need it in Sage for your application. It's a DUNS number is essentially just like an ID whenever you apply for anything with the state. It's just an ID number.
ID number that you get through the state. Okay, what is stormwater managing notification and for the preservation? I don't think so. I don't think you would be eligible for this project mentioned for New Jersey Transit. Next, do you have to be an overburdened community? You don't have to be an overburdened community, but if it benefits an overburdened community, it would get a little bit higher ratings when we do the evaluation. Is it a competitive grant application? Yes. Are all applicants required to provide a match? No, but there is 10 points associated with providing some sort of a match. And so your likelihood of getting selected increases. Must the action plan mention the proposed project area? What action plan? I'm not sure what we're talking about here, but this part I can say, we definitely want to know what area the grant is associated with, but I'm not quite sure what an action plan is. Would a structural stability project be eligible where stability is at risk due to stormwater? That's a little bit of a stretch. I think we were looking for projects that improve water quality and water quantity or planning. If your municipality qualifies for the IDA grant that we discussed last week, that's the resilience grant that we discussed last week, should we also apply for this competitive grant? The resilience grant was a planning document. It helps your municipality prepare for greater flood resiliency. Whereas this project, whereas what I discussed today was mostly demonstration projects and some stormwater opportunities. So they're really two different things. If you want to apply for both, you're more than welcome to apply for both. If a project is shovel ready, does it have priority? Absolutely. Can another DEP department apply such a state park? No. Yeah, that wouldn't look nice. That wouldn't look right. DEP giving grants to itself. Would a stream cleaning, desnagging operation be eligible? No. It's more of a maintenance activity that we didn't anticipate it covering those. What are the anticipated award amounts for applicants? I guess that means for each individual grant. I don't think we've set a minimum or a maximum for each applicant. We just know what the total bucket is, and we will make a decision based on what we get, and we'll try to pick the project that are most appealing to us. What are the match requirements from the applicant? There's no dollar amount, but we would be looking for funds that you can get from other grants. We'd be looking for investment of time and other indirect costs. Would a GIS inventory of all municipal stormwater facilities be eligible under the planning category? Yes, this would be eligible, but I think it would be good if you can also catalog them and show. I think that is going to be a requirement. You're going to have to pretty much also assign some sort of categories, like which ones need improvement and which ones are good as they are. But we're looking for opportunities identification. But obviously, an inventory would have to be the first step before you can identify opportunities under that grant. Property acquisition costs are not an eligible cost associated with this. We would not be funding property acquisition. How many awards? I'm really not sure at this point. It depends on what we get and how good they are. But we would definitely like to spread it out and give out as much as we can. This is the same question. Another question on CSO. Again, please email me if you have CSO questions. I'd like to get some more information on what type of project you're thinking about, and I will answer those. Okay, Jennifer, who's our SAGE expert, came up with an answer on the required fields. And the required fields are clearly marked with an asterisk. So if it says required field, and you really don't have that document, you can upload a blank page or a page that says this is not applicable. Or if you want to upload photos of your last vacation, that's okay too. Is that a maximum amount of money? No, so we answered that. Would resurfacing a condominium driveway parking with pervious asphalt, qualified pervious asphalt is a BMP, it could qualify. Dunce is no longer relevant. Unique Entity identifier. Yeah, that sounds familiar to me. So we're going to be using unique entity identifier instead of DUNS. Thank you. Thank you for that information. If the project is currently defined, but it is early in the design stages, will that be considered project ready? Yeah, I don't think we anticipated that every project submitted would be already designed out and shovel ready. If we think the project can be built within the time frame that we have, we will definitely consider projects that are in the early design stage. We definitely need some designs, but it doesn't have to be a full final design. Minimum or maximum award, no. Yeah, this is the same question. So you have a project that you're anticipating, you have some conceptuals, you've done your groundwork, you know where it's going to go, what it's going to cover, what it's going to treat. And then you just want to do some final designs as well as construction. I think that would be fine. You can submit that. So we got to the end of the questions. And we covered everything. It's now 11:15. So, so I'd like to just thank everybody again for coming. We started with over 200 people. We're down to like 100 something now, 140 right now. Thanks for coming, and go to our Stormwater website. Did we post all the links, John? The links that I sent you, or you want me to post it?
The links were posted. We could do it again now.
You're gonna do it now?
Yeah, we'll do it again. We posted
Okay.
in the beginning.
Yeah. Okay, post all the links one more time. And if anybody wants, they can come back and get the links from here. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care and have a good day. Yes, the recordings will be posted.